Yes, Pradhan, and very good day. So we are going to continue the contract elements. So previously we stopped at capacity. That is the fifth elements in the contract. So we're going to proceed with the sixth and seven. All right. So for the six elements, right? This is related to the free consent, where both parties should enter any contract freely without any pressure from the other parties. So every agreement is a contract if it is made by the free consent of the parties. Okay, this is parties. Make sure that both of the parties are not forced to do the contract, so the contract is not void. So you cannot push people to do a contract, okay, without agreement for them. Yeah. So this is actually both parties must be free consent. Okay. So that is the sixth element. All right. Then the last element is the certainty of the contract, which is meaning that you must have a certain of contract. Okay. So any contract should be legal, and the terms of the contract must be certain and not vague. Okay, so every terms of an agreement must be certain of capable of being ascertained. Where the terms of agreement are not certain, the contract may be void. So make sure that in the contract it must be written clearly and is very certain on each of the things that you want to do for the promiser to the promisee. So that will be clear to make sure that everyone understand. Okay, so we just look at one of the example here, the case for the case of Karupan Chati versus Swantia. So if you read about this case, right, this is a case of renting a house. So one of the element, part of it is a certainty of the contract, right? So what happened was is the parties agreed upon the granting of a lease of RM 35 ringgit per month. This is the word that they put in the contract, as long as he likes. Okay, so this is actually not a certain statement over here, because it should be how many years, how many months, so that is a certain, right? So what happened was the court held the requirement of the certainty had not been satisfied, so the agreement is void. So this is due to the language used by the party is not specified and too vague. So in a nutshell, all uncertain contracts are void, okay, based on the Contract Act. So that is the seven element of the contract to make sure that the contract is not void. So it must have all these seven elements from the beginning of the slides. So the elements are offer, then you have the acceptance, then you have the intention, right, then you have the consideration, right. This is something what you want to consider from the uh, promise or the intention. Then you have the capacity. All right, so remember that the capacity is there is actually an uh, acceptable for the case of yeah, sorry, not acceptable, is an exception for the case of the capacity. So then the sixth element is the free consent, the one that we just learned just now, very simple. And the last one is certainty. So make sure that all these element must be inside the contract, because maybe in the future you're going to have a contract, right? Maybe you have your own house to be rented. So make sure that everything is there. Okay, so that are the seven elements of the contract. So next one is about how to discharge, or maybe the topics will be on the discharge of the contract, right? So it means that there is a contract, and then the contract is void possibly. So there are reasons why the contract can be discharged. All right. So discharge of contract is an example way for the parties to separate it from the agreement. All right. So a termination of a contractual relation that exists between the involved parties, that is a discharge, right? So this means all of them are now free from any contractual obligations regardless of whether they were fulfilled. So it means that if you discharge from the contract, means you are free to do not doing the contract anymore. So there are four main reasons why or how the contract can be void or discharged. Okay, the first item is performance. The second one is breach. And the third one is mutual agreement. And the last one is frustration. So we're going to look at one by one of these elements or the reason the contract can be discharged. Okay, let's look at the first one, the performance. Okay, so the most popular and obvious way of discharging the contract is when both parties have fulfilled their contract obligations. So it means that both parties completed. As the result, all the rights and obligations tied to this contract then come to an end. It's very simple. You perform the contract requirement, and of course after that finish. It's very simple, like the when you purchase over the counter, right? So it's very simple. Once you've done everything, then you go. It's complete. All right. Then, for example, here the performing party is obligated to deliver 10 tons of sugar. So once all the 10 tons had been delivered, both parties can be discharged the contract by full performance. So this is called the performance. So we have a case study here based on the performance. This is regarded whether the contract is void or not. So you have to go to the link to watch the informations on the case study Carter versus Powell, whether the void is void or discharged or not. So have a link, take your time. Okay, the second item, the second reason normally for the discharge of the contract is breach. So this word have been is quite normal for us to hear, right? So it's a breach of contract, especially when you guys uh, sign for the scholarships or whatever it is. You are not perform to that particular contract, so means that later yeah, it's a breach party. It's a breach of the contract. So only one party has fulfilled their contractual obligation. Only one party. The second party becomes guilty, and the contract must be discharged by breach. So one person does not complete the obligations. So this means that the existing contractual obligation will cease, but the guilty party must then compensate all the damages resulting from the unexpected ending of the contract. So this is normal, like scholarships you have to pay back. So that is considered parts of the compensations for the contract. So you can look at what causes of a breach contract. This is normal: miscommunication, missed deadlines, external forces, poorly written agreements, law or misplaced documents, and manual contract management. So this is related to the breach. The next reason for the discharge of contract is very simple. Both parties can come to a mutual agreement. So we are going to cancel the contract. So mean you're discharged based on each other. So both parties agree. That's very simple. You can discharge the contract. Then we are going to the last one. This is another word. Maybe this is quite confusing because we understand frustration is something that related to the emotions that when you are not getting anything, right? You're frustrated over something. So what is the words using in the discharge of contract? So here, once unforeseen circumstances make the fulfillment of contractual obligations impossible or highly challenging, the agreement might be discharged by frustration. So it's very simple. You have a contract. A person wants you to do a contract, something task A and task B. So eventually, the person cannot fulfill up the task A and B because there is actually another reason which stop him to do the full obligations of the contract. So it's very simple like that. So it's a frustration by the terms of a discharging of the contract. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 case study, different case study to look what happened in the contract, because these cases are being pursued at the court, right? So you're going to look at what is the reason whether the contract still is okay, need to be performed by the both parties. And the other one, maybe the other one is you can see that based on the cases here, there are the frustration discharge for the contract. All right, so take your time down, stop for this one, and then you have to look at each of the case. It's just a very short presentation. Okay, what happened after the contract had been discharged? Okay, especially which is you have to do especially without the performance being performed, and also there's no mutual agreement. Okay, so normally like a breach and frustration, right? For example, here is a breach and the frustration. Normally they must have a compensation. So what happened after the discharge of contract? So there is actually a legal remedy for this one. Remedy is something that to help. I think, yeah, if you Google this word, is related to something like medicine, right? Something that to fix something. Yeah. So all right. So that is actually a remedy, but in terms of legal, so there are the medicine, sort of medicine to cater the discharge of the contract. So they call it remedies, right? So there are two types of remedies. One, they call it damages, and the second one, they call it equitable. So there are two types of remedies in terms of legal for discharging of a contract. Okay, let's look at the first one. Okay, here for the remedies for the damages, right? So this is normally related to the compensation. So there are two types of damages. One is a liquidated damages, and the second one is unliquidated damages, right? So here is related, mostly related uh, to the compensation. So the difference between like liquidated damages and liquidated damages. So normally liquidated is predefined. It's a fixed amount of money. So predefined. You have to pay me something, blah blah blah, right? Especially in the scholarship. So you have to pay back to me how many years to give back to return back the money. So this is related to liquidated, right? So contractually specified sum. So everything is there. Estimated potential losses and provides legal certainty. For the case of unliquidated damages, this is something that they have to assess. That require court determine compensation. This is the related, uh, yeah, this is must be assessment to look at how much compensation that it needs to remedy the contract which have been breached. So this is between the liquidated and unliquidated. Okay, the last one will be the equitable remedy. So the remedies of a specific performance and injunction. So there are two types of equitable remedy, which is specific performance, and the second one is injunctions. So these remedies, right? These two remedies, the remedies of specific performance and injunctions are similar. Basically, they are similar. But the key difference is that while an order for specific performance order a party to do something, an injunction is order a party not to do something. It's very simple. If the contract had been breached, so the remedy for equitable can ask the person not to do something, which is the injunction, or they must do something, which is a specific performance, to make sure that they have the remedy for the breach of the contract. So it's very simple: specific performance, injunction, and this one is about liquidated damages and liquidated damages. This is related to the remedies after the discharge of the contract. So I think we covered most of the contract chapter. So make sure that you guys go and complete the quiz to make sure that the points are given and your marks have been keyed in. Thank you very much then.